Well, you know what? Very busy day in the UFO world today. And we're going to start off, John, with some Canadian news.
I don't know, man. That's just like the 51st state. Like, what's the big deal? But
No. We're 2-0 against you, buddy. 2-0.
Oh.
Okay? You had your chance twice. You lost both times. Now, we may not have won a Stanley Cup since 1993, since the Gary Bettman era took over NHL, but history shows we're 2-0.
And we beat you with Canadians. Just saying.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, it's like those humans that are helping the reptilians.
That's all right. My Edmonton Oilers are going to make a major run this year. Major run. And my two guests with me tonight couldn't even find Edmonton on a map. But that's okay. We love them dearly. The Oilers are going to win the Stanley Cup this year.
It's in Alberta.
Where?
It's all I got. Barely across the border. Like,
I think Alberta
3 hours.
Alberta's the only place I haven't been to, I think.
North of Idaho.
That's Calgary.
I'm just throwing out locations, honestly.
I know.
If we're throwing out random places, did you know there's actually a Chihuahua, Mexico?
Yes.
It's a real place.
There was actually UFO sightings there.
They don't make Chihuahuas there anymore, though. They exported that to Texas.
There are wild herds of Chihuahua around Chihuahua, though.
Oh, really? They didn't tell me that. That's cool.
There's also a giant gold mine there. Really? I've actually been told that, and this is a little stock option for you, little stock tip, that according to the Motley Fools, that this place is about to explode for the next 10 years of gold mining in Chihuahua. And it would be a good time to invest in that.
You know what's, well, boy, man, I wonder what's going to happen because I don't want to sideline for too far, but I got to admit, like I said before, I've been to a lot of countries. I have never in my life seen vastly different economic scales right next to each other with absolutely no lines at all. And it's actually a really insane place. I mean, lovely people, but it's really not stable. I mean, it's really crazy.
South America, is that what you're saying?
Well, specifically Chihuahua, not all of South America. There's lots of places that are actually doing really, really well. But Chihuahua itself, it was like, I've never seen, I leave like this 5-star hotel with like all this stuff. And then you go and there's like no street lights, no sidewalks, no running water.
No.
It's just crazy,
That's on the nose. That's the same experience I had.
Yeah, it's nutty. But beautiful people, a beautiful place. Yeah,
they all want to come here. And I want them to.
Want to give a shout out quickly to my cousin in Las Vegas who looks like Bob Vila's twin.
Hey.
How you doing, Bob Vila? Nice to have you here. All right, let's get to some UFO talk, John. Start off with the Canadian news.
Yes. Well, I heard that you had something to do with it, so I figured that you were going to be the one breaking it. I was all excited to be the one interviewing you for once.
Okay, I'll take that bet. So Daniel Otis, who is a freelance writer for Vice Magazine, also works for CTV News, tipped me off last night that there was going to be a big story coming out of CTV News on UFOs. And believe it or not, this actually got airplay across Canada on their newscast.
Is this someone who had shared news with you previously? Were you considered a reliable person for them?
I hope so.
That's all. Go, please.
If I'm not reliable, holy cow. So anyways, here's the big news. Right before the DIA's UFO report came out last June 25th. On the 21st of that month, former Canadian Defense Minister Harjit Sajjan was read in on UFOs. Now, this is all tying to What is Canada's role? Is it happening here? Are we taking the report seriously through the military, through NAV Canada, through other aviation areas in Canada? And it is still not known as of yet whether or not Prime Minister Trudeau has been read in. I do believe he was back in 2019 when former ambassador to Washington, D.C. was briefed and came back to Canada to brief in the Prime Minister. But the big news is this has finally hit mainstream media. Now, I do have some information that I can share on this. Number one, my sources tell me Lou Elizondo is one of the ones who gave the briefing. Now,
Wow.
if you recall, a week ago when Elizondo was on this show, what did he say, Nicole?
You were the one that hooked up the people that needed to hear the briefing. Or which part? Or he said he was stepping away to make things happen.
Well, considering you're just talking Canada, I would think that the Canadian portion was probably the most important part of that.
Right. He didn't name your source, though, and he said that you'd been setting on this for a long time, like working this happening. So it was just so perfect that you could bring these two worlds together. So
now, I did talk to somebody in Ottawa today, and this was their quote. I'm going to leave. This is my source in Ottawa. I'm going to leave their name out of it. This person says, I will tell you as soon as I chat with him, because I'm trying to get an interview with a Canadian politician for the beginning of June regarding this. We now have an official party position on this, which is great. It's not the flashiest of quotes, but getting our shadow minister to state that the government's objective should be identifying the origins and intent of these UAP is a green light for us to call on the government to get to work and do whatever is necessary to make this a reality, which now means there's a good chance that if the Conservative Party of Canada plays their cards right, they may bring this up in the House of Commons, which means that's going to be in front of all the Canadians who are watching, all mainstream media outlets, and Canada has officially opened the doors on UFOs. Now, I was talking to a source. We are working very diligently right now as Spaced Out Radio to do the follow-up on this major story that has happened. And I have, for one of my sources, literally scared the hell out of him today when I posed 31 questions to this person. And if he comes back and says, hey, I'm going to answer these, I will give his name and we will go from there. But we're going to write up a story. That story, once we write it up, once we get the information, it's going to take about, hopefully less than a week. We're going to write up that story with all the information and really blow the top off of this Canadian story about UAP. And if we get that, we know that we have a publication in the United Kingdom that wants to pick that up. I'm going to be tipping off some of my journalist friends regarding this across Canada, and we're going to run with it. So,
and, you know, there's so many angles to this that can be explored. I mean, just from a very simple point of view of, I think what a lot of us want to know is that with Canada being such an adjacent physical and both culturally and government-wise, partner, how much of what Canada holds are they just holding because of things they did on our behalf, right? Things that we requested they do. And then how much of what they have has been generated by their own research, right? And then honestly, the third part, which is how much of it have they just bumbled into, right? And then, why are they taking it seriously? Are they taking it seriously because they believe it they should be, or are they really just taking it seriously because we are, right? And where do those lines fall? And to me, that is just one of 16 different angles you could take of this story that I think is going to produce some very interesting stuff.
Go ahead.
I like the angle that your defense minister received his briefing in June 2021. So, I mean,
see, and I was tipped off that that's not the first time he's been debriefed on this.
Right. Well, that's the first where we've seen it trickle out into public. You know,
absolutely.
Well, that also means that his second briefing was deeper, right? Or at least it was more verbose.
Well,
because there'd be no reason to do a second. There's a lot of work involved in doing a briefing, right? So
it falls in suit with a lot of work over the decades with. And even reading behind the lines with what the Canadian government does and doesn't do. And their biggest give is they never say anything about anything for so long. And then it came out with Rakowski that there has been this lifeline, working handshake agreement with Rakowski over the decades. And I mean, then that goes all the way back to the Wilbert Smith days. So,
and Rakowski actually sat in on the SCU meetings with the government. I'll put off. I'm going to get you guys to hold on right here because we are going to continue this conversation and other UFO topics with the fedora-wearing Jon Hudson, co-host tonight, Nicole Sakach, and myself, Dave Scott. The hair is down, the gloves are off. It's hockey playoff time. What better way than to talk UFOs with my friend right here and my friend down here, and we're all good. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. We're clear. This is good stuff, people. Good stuff.
I feel like Grant's here in spirit with us. Like, talk about Wilbert Smith.
That's all Grant wants to talk about is Wilbert Smith.
Not really. He wrote a book on it already, so.
I know.
He's over it. He's moved on. Grant's at the forefront,
Fedora, what's going on? Are you playing video games or what?
I'm just thinking because it's so interesting because I don't know how much of this I should talk about, but to me it's fascinating because there's so many unknown links between the two countries where a lot of communication goes on and partnerships are there and there's a lot of support going back and forth. And some of those relationships are extremely high level, and so I have a really hard time believing that there aren't large elements of the Canadian government that didn't need to be read in. They were completely up to speed with several aspects of the program and had been for some time.
Well, I mean, the problem is, from what we're learning, Canada doesn't have how do you put it here? They don't have a woo desk. So the research is done by NAV Canada. It's done by the Transportation Safety Board, the RCMP, the military, CSIS, and other groups all at once. And it's like, in my opinion, they're throwing papers this way, that way, in every direction in order to kind of make it somewhat, that they're in the game when they don't even know if they're in the game. Me personally, one of the questions I asked to my source is a Canadian government very naive or obtuse on this subject? And anytime I get to use the word obtuse, I'm going to use it. And I'm in a waiting game right now.
Well, and the thing is that they very well could be, because the thing is that some of the reasons why you guys might know certain things might be um, slight side effects due to other sharing that goes on, and so you take, like, just for example, signals intelligence, right? The SIGINT folks in Canada and the U.S. Get along pretty well, and there's some tight relationships there, and so and now they are not, contrary to what people think, those guys aren't necessarily interested in like specific content of a specific line, right? That's not how they typically work. But you can still like see that there would be a relationship there that would certainly facilitate a fair amount of knowledge transfer, and might even require it under certain circumstances. But that wouldn't necessarily trickle down or up to any other group, because it would only be the SIGTEL guys that are are in on it.
Maybe.
I think that scenario makes sense when you overlay the relationships and bonds that were formed between governments in World War II and post. And then, I mean, everybody talks about our relationship with England, dragging us into that conflict. But things that really solidified that alliance was governments related to England, like Canada. And so when you overlay
a lot of money
that
to make
dynamic with now climate, I mean, it's like Dave said, they don't have a woo desk or a weird desk, but they have this network already in place that coincides with ours, just based on, things like Reagan put in place. So, I mean, that's the avenue I chase with this. Because, yeah, the Canadians are probably just as compartmentalized as any faction in our own United States government. So we don't know what we have with our own network.
Yep. No, so true.
All right, guys. 10 seconds. Big thank you to G West, D Cohen, Noble Patrick Vaughn, and Catfish. Excuse me. Here we go with the final half hour. We passed, well, let's just say the final half hour point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. We're going till the top of the hour talking woo and how it affects you, because that's what we do around here on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott, and we got the fedora-wearing Jon Hudson and Nicole Sakach here with us tonight. Before we bring them on in, we want to remind everybody that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Yes, the Unbiased UFO Report continuing here tonight. And our good friends Jon Hudson, Nicole Sakach with us. We're talking about the Canadian story here, that it has been finally announced that Canada's defense minister, the former defense minister Harjit Sajjan, was read in on the UFOs, potentially by Luis Elizondo. And that happened in 2021 of June, and it happened just days prior to the United States government and the DIA releasing their preliminary UFO report on June 25th of that year. Quite coincidental, John, that it happened within 4 days.
Well, and it just dawned on me that it's also super curious that Elizondo did it. I mean, I understand why Elizondo was the contact from you guys setting it all up. That makes sense to me. But as far as being the one to actually deliver the I'm just surprised that he was the one that delivered the message, because at that point in his history, he wasn't working, officially for the federal government. He was, contracting and so forth. And so I'm just kind of surprised that he was the one that did it.
You know what he was doing on unidentified, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, very, very true. Very, very true. Yeah, no, very, very, very true. Very, very true.
Look at who he met with, like, just in Italy. Like, that makes sense to me too. So,
well, it's going to be easy to see how this plays out. I know Spaced Out Radio is going to have a big part of this. At least we should.
I hope so.
If nobody jumps in and steals my source, that's what it comes down to. Because, my other people know who my sources are. I just don't give them up. And other people will be like, oh, well, old Frank over there, he was telling me. I'm like, oh, God, shut up, Frank. And that's just the way journalism works. It's just the way it is.
It's like when Grant and I break certain stuff, there's always that somebody who's like, shh, you're going to ruin it. And it's like,
oh, yeah. I understand that whatsoever. What else you got for us tonight there, Fedora?
Well, there is this very interesting story of this high-resolution image that has come out from the Institute of essentially a geographic national for Costa Rica. And this is essentially a picture that was reportedly taken on the 4th of September in 1971. We actually have a fair amount of information about who took the picture, what kind of plane they were flying, altitudes, time. There's actually a phenomenal amount of information available for it. And then there is the photo. And I gotta be honest, I struggle with this one, and for no reasons at all than just my probably completely misplaced gut instincts, which it would not be the first time. I don't know. I know what it is. The angle that the ground is at in relation to the camera, to me, is very different than the angle that the saucer is flying at. If the saucer is flying perpendicular to the land, then it might not be as easy to identify. And so it almost looks to me like someone intentionally tilted it in a weird way just to make it look more obvious. And that's unfortunately but the thing is that there's a very, very good chance that this is actually a completely authentic photograph, because there is a lot of information on it. And, what I'm saying right now is basically what most people do on Twitter, which is just shoot from their gut. Right. So, but I'm just basically explaining, looking at it, it's like, I don't know. To me, it's not, it doesn't have the wow of some of the other photographs I've seen, because for me, I pretty quickly go to questioning this one.
Okay. Well, give us the background on this so we can form our own opinion here.
Yeah. So essentially, at 10,000 feet, the aerial photographer, Sergio Lorenzi, I believe, activated his 100-pound map-making camera. At 20-second intervals, the camera shot images of the water in the rainforest in high-resolution black and white. None of the occupants were aware that there was anything taken. It was eventually, after pulling the negatives out to study for potential ways of connecting the lake with nearby rivers, someone saw on frame 300 this image. It has a timestamp of about 8:25 in the morning, and based on everything else in the photograph and their known variables, because of the nature of the way they were taking film, they can say within reason that the object was between 120 and 220 feet in diameter, which is actually still a pretty big range of unknown when you get down to it.
What year was this?
This was filmed, taken in 1971. Now, it should be interesting to note that if I read this right, looks like over the years, the image has been analyzed by several people, including Dr. Jacques Vallée.
Right.
They all concluded that the image in the photograph appeared real and was not the result of double exposure or deliberate fabrication. And it wasn't just Jacques Vallée; it was also Dr. Richard Haynes, and they appear to stand in front of it. So the perfect example of what I'm talking about. My gut, possibly gave me very bad information.
I believe another interesting side note to that anthology of people who believe in this photo is I believe this photo hangs on Leslie Kean's wall in her house. And it also has popped up in the work that James Fox has done for his Phenomenon film. So
was this the alleged photo that was hanging in Nick Pope's office too?
No. That's a completely different photo. That one's not a UFO. It's not.
Well, it's probably a hair pick.
If that was the one that I'm presuming that I just spoke of, it's been so authenticated. It's held in such high regard as being a true photo. And it is kind of like you said, the really real ones always kind of surprise people and look a little fake. So
very, very often, because it's very clear. You can really see it. And it's such a classic cliche shape, it's like
now it is, but when it was taken, it is not.
Fair. But that almost doesn't lend the credit. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so then it's it was set up for the right time period. You know what I mean? Like to me, the designs should, I don't know. To me, UFO styles shouldn't go out of style to us. To me, their story arc trajectories. I don't know. That part's just always frustrated me. The whole idea that there are old looking UFOs. It's a beautiful picture.
It is. We're going to continue on here with the Unbiased UFO Report with the fedora wearing Jon Hudson. What else you got for us tonight, my friend?
Well, let's see. There were some other articles that you sent me here, so let's see what we got here. So the Costa Rica one was definitely something very, very, very interesting. The resolution of that Costa Rica picture, is certainly it's certainly pretty crazy. But essentially, completely shifting gears. There is a kind of more entertaining and perhaps one might argue more hopeful and more positive sort of story, and that is that there appear to be some openings. For those of us that consider ourselves to be helpful in the field, maybe we want to be checking this out. Basically, these are positions in the AOIMSG, and I'm going to have to say it like that for a little while longer, because otherwise I'm going to mess it up. But these are actually positions within that organization, including, and these are not these are not low-level roles. This one is for a collection lead, but it's at a grade GS-15. A GS-15 is that's what Lou was. That's not a low place to be by any means whatsoever. And so I'm kind of surprised by that. But essentially, you can read into it, and that's not the only position that they have posted. So there's actually there's the data collection, and there's also a one for a senior analyst lead, and another one for I don't know. I can't help but giggle over this, because to me, I love it when weird stories like the Phenomenon brush into really mundane aspects of society. Just really dry cleaning type stuff. Like this, and that's essentially what this looks like to me. Because this is all this is all infrastructure, right? I mean, this is all they're
Well,
actually
what's the
trying to
position
fill
then?
roles.
You're
Say again?
teasing us. What's the position opening?
Yeah.
Well, no, I said what they were.
Is it a
Basically,
chef?
One of them's a
Is
collection
it a
lead.
chef's position? I'll go cook in their cafeteria.
One is a collection lead. One is a senior analyst lead. One is a there was one other one that got seen, and there's a couple. There's other positions posted, but and the thing is, it's not to say it's not fair to poke fun completely, because if you read the positions, this is actually exactly what I would be hiring for if I was trying to build out that team, right? I mean, they're not shooting for the wrong fish, sort of a thing, right? It's just more just funny that that here we're all talking about all of it, and then you find out that they're like, yeah, and it's serious, and we have open recs, and we have to fill them, and it sucks because we're gonna have to do reviews and like normal stuff, and it's like, yeah, normal life, kind of funny.
We've all seen Goodwill Hunting.
I'm going to tell you right now, if I were to submit a resume to this, all I would put on there is woo. That's it. I know I'm getting hired right there, because they're going to call me in. They're going to say, what the hell's with this resume, man? All you got on there is woo? And I'll say, that's all you need.
And
I am the captain of the woo train. Let's
I'll
roll,
say-
baby. Let's roll.
And I'm going to put woo and can cook. Done.
Well,
They're
honestly,
taking my app over yours.
honestly, Nicole, with any time you have a group that does field work,
They all need to eat.
having someone on the team that can actually cook is a far more valuable asset than most people come to realize.
Casey
That's a
Ryback,
real selling feature.
Casey Ryback says it all. I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
Steven Seagal movies. Casey Ryback. And all great adventures have chefs.
I'm telling you right now that if Canada gets its own woo desk, I'm going for it. I am going for it. There is no bloody way that if Canada gets a woo desk, and I'm going to submit the resume, I will show each and every one of our listeners my cover letter towards my resume.
Hey, we have to beef up the clearance side of our resumes,
here's
I
the thing,
think.
like,
Just a little bit.
They don't like no one like joins thinking I'm going to run the weird desk, right? Like the people that run the weird desk probably got sent there because they did something wrong, right? I mean, they were probably sent there because they're in trouble, right? I mean, it's like that's not going to be a position that's going to necessarily be good for
you're
your career,
made for the woo desk. You're made for the woo desk.
I mean, I can't even.
Just like
I can't even imagine.
Had to do the X-Files. Like they were made for the X-Files. You're made for the woo desk.